Hey there, Jared here from Sound Guitar Lessons. In this video, I'm going to talk about my best technique advice from 15 years of teaching guitar lessons. There are tons of technique exercises we could be doing to improve as guitarists, but which ones we should be focusing on really depend on what our goals are, what we actually want to be playing, what challenge we're facing at the moment. So, instead of giving you a specific technique that everyone should be doing, I'm going to talk to you about how to practice technique, how to focus on it to see the best results. And then I will give you a specific exercise to test it out with to see how it works for yourself. Why should we talk about technique? Of course, technique is the foundation of being able to play anything. We can't get to that inspired musical expression that maybe we're feeling and draws us towards wanting to play an instrument if we don't deal with technique first. It's the thing between us and that emotional connection that we want to have, that catharsis, that song that's in your head. We need technique to be able to play anything. So of course it's an important thing to talk about on its own. So again, there are so many techniques we could be working on. It could be using the pick. Are we alternate picking? Are we sweep picking? What's the angle of the pick? What's the angle of our finger if we're playing with our fingers? Or are you using your nail? What kind of tone are you getting? Are we playing on the tips of our fingers with the left hand? How do we get a cleaner bar so notes aren't buzzing? How do we get to our thumb to be in the right position? On and on and on. So many techniques we could be working on. And each of these just depend on what your goal is while you're practicing. If we just practice general techniques, that can be good. But I want to give you a solution to when you're really trying to play something and you feel that limitation in your technique and how to zero in on it and really take care of it and problem solve that specific practice spot. So there's not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to what specific technique thing should everybody be working on, but there is a one-size-fits-all with how to work on it. I like to make things as simple as possible. The simplest approach usually feels like the most effective approach. If I can figure out, okay, what's the one thing to work on that actually makes all those other things easier, that's what I'm going to put my energy into. In this case, it's how we focus. You can't focus on more than one thing at a time. More and more this is becoming known, right? This idea of multitasking is now kind of being myth busted, that you're not actually doing 2 things, 3 things, 4 things at once. You're kind of switching your attention between them, maybe rapidly, maybe at whatever interval, thinking that you're being productive and doing a bunch of things at once, but really you can only focus on one of those things at a time. So if you think about trying to read a book and listen to a podcast, those things are going to interfere with each other. How do you absorb the information from both of them at once? You might hear some of the words being said and you might read some of the words being said, but you're not going to follow both at once at the exact same time. Of course, we can do multiple things at once, we just can't focus on them at once. So yes, you can walk and chew gum. Both of those things are pretty easy to do habitually. So you can walk and chew gum and talk to somebody. Now the point here is that what we can do simultaneously is because of habit, is because of this autopilot or muscle memory. So even the easiest thing you can play on the guitar, if you think of the simplest thing that you know how to play, you're like, oh yeah, easy. Could do it in my sleep, right? Well, we say that phrase for a reason too, because we have it down as a habit, ingrained, subconscious, muscle memory learning, this autopilot mechanism. So anything we're doing musically has a ton going on at once, no matter what it is. On the guitar, we have, okay, you might be plucking various strings if you're playing a single note melodic line, let's say, or even just a scale. So you have to think about what string you're on, okay, and then you have to control what fret you're playing, and you might be wanting to think of what pitch name that is, or what number that is in the scale theoretically, or if there are lyrics to something, you're singing the lyrics, and then there's the notes you're singing. Is that in tune? Or if you have to bend, is that in tune? Just many, many, many layers of processing while we're playing anything. Now, if that wasn't the case, that would mean it's just easy to do and everyone would be doing it. Now, this is why it's hard. This is why it's so hard to start something new from scratch, or playing guitar at first is a really hard instrument to start playing. Think for a second if you've had this experience where you're playing something, or maybe you were taking lessons and your teacher told you, okay, make sure you're doing all these things, and then you're practicing something and you're like, oh no, I'm supposed to be doing that. Oh no, I'm supposed to be doing that. This is going wrong now. Oh, now my thumb's over here. Oh, now, oops, I was holding my breath. All these things. And we could just kind of beat ourselves up with that feeling of how hard it is to control all of those things at once, because we can't. We're just noticing, we're putting out fires. This is going wrong. This is going wrong. This is going wrong. Oh, fix this, fix this, fix this. So the solution is very simple, or the approach here I want you to try is very simple. It's just that you intentionally focus on one thing at a time, because we only can anyway. So now we're just going to own that. Just focus on one element, one tiny element at a time. The more we do this in general with how we practice music, the more we will see accelerated progress. Now, this might not seem like news to some people. Oh, focus on one thing at a time, big deal. But by default, most people aren't practicing this way. So I want it to be extremely intentional that we are focusing on every little element at a time. Here's why most people aren't doing it. The reason is because if you focus on one thing, everything else goes wrong. Everything else goes out the window. Some other thing you're supposed to be doing if it's not a habit yet. So part of this is that we say that's okay. Let everything else go out the window. Let everything else go wrong except for that one thing that you're focusing on. We don't learn, we don't absorb, we don't retain what we don't focus on. Actively engaging in something is the key, and not just playing and passively hoping that we get better by playing the same thing over and over and over again. If you're playing the same thing over and over again, try focusing on as many different parts of that as possible, as many different things that are going on. And this is tough because it totally goes against what a lot of us have been told for so long, which is that if you practice something wrong, you're going to learn it wrong, right? So don't do anything wrong, because if you do that, you're making it a habit. That's true, but if we're not focusing on that part of it, and we're actually putting our energy into thinking consciously about doing a certain thing, that's actually the part that we absorb. So yeah, you might physically do something wrong. You might have your thumb way over here and you're wanting to work on having your thumb centered on the back of the neck. But if your focus is on your alternate picking over here, that's the part that is becoming the habit, and more importantly, you're getting used to what it feels like to control that part of it. The other part, you're not even, it might be doing something wrong, and you might physically be kind of getting used to doing that, but you're going to go take care of that separately. And when you do that, you're so intentional about focusing on that thumb, for example, that then you learn what it feels like to have control over that. So this conditioning that if you practice something wrong, you're going to play it wrong, is a little dangerous, because then we just think, okay, everything has to be perfect. Everything has to go well, and that's what induces this putting out fires version of practicing. It's like, oh no, now this is going wrong. Oh, now this. Oh no, now I forgot to do this. Oh, now the note buzzed, and there's too much to focus on, and then we walk away discouraged. So you want to let everything else go out the window except for that one thing that you're focusing on. And we have to learn what it feels like to focus on that one element of our playing, so it can become a habit, and so we have control over what it feels like to go there and fix it if and when we actually need to work on it again. So autopilot is the goal, actually. With anything we play, we want to have so much habitual training with it that we can just space out and play it. That idea of, I can play that in my sleep. It doesn't sound like a positive thing to maybe phone it in, but this is the level that we want to get to with anything we're playing. And the reason is so then we actually have that room to focus on something meaningful, to listen to what we're playing. It's so common to be playing something and just not even listening to it. We could think about, okay, I'm playing the right frets or whatever. And so the final stage of this, if everything else is going well, then we can start to work on, how does it feel to me? Am I listening to it? If you're playing with other people, listening to them and how you're lining up with them dynamically or in time or whatever. If you're performing, you can start to tap into, how's my connection with the audience? If you're playing, if you're recording something, you can really think about the musical expression. If we have to think about any of these other technique elements that we want as autopilot, it messes that up. So this kind of brings up this idea of, what does it mean to have something really down or ready to perform, or that you really know it? Just being able to play through the notes is not good enough yet. We have to be able to do it so automatically that we can think about how it feels to us, how it sounds to us, and are we communicating what we want musically? The difference between those two ways of playing is massive. You could play through all the right notes, but if you can do that while tapping into how the music feels to you, and everything else is so ingrained that you don't have to think about it, the difference is huge. So for years I've been calling this the focus rotation method. And it's just what I've been saying. I want you to rotate between focusing on different elements of your playing technique while you're practicing something. I'm going to give you a specific way to do it here in a second, but let's talk about that aspect of switching our focus. There are two ways to approach it. One is a sustained focus. So you're really playing through whatever portion you're working on and trying to sustain your focus on one thing. And the other one is rapid focus switching, where you, just that, like what I mentioned earlier, where you're like, oh, this is going wrong, this is going wrong, this is going wrong. So we actually want to do that eventually, so we can, when we're practicing, consciously switch pretty quickly between, okay, now I'm going to focus on this, now I'm going to focus on this. Now that's still intentional, and we want to know what it feels like to switch to any of those things really consciously. All of this connects us to why we're practicing anything. So that's even a bigger concept that is the most important thing to making the most progress with our practicing, to have potent practicing. Just playing something again and again is not going to do the trick. Now, of course, we can do that when we want to just chill and relax and enjoy playing something, fine. But that's, again, it's about intentionality. Do you want to do that to relax and play and enjoy it? Cool, I love doing that. But if I'm sitting down to make progress and improve, I'm going to focus very clearly on why and then what to do. Okay, so hopefully you're sold on that idea. Now let me give you specific examples. I want you to do this with anything you're working on, but I'm going to give you something that I usually give all my students this, and I still work on it all the time. This particular exercise is nice because I want something as simple as possible, because remember, even the simplest thing, there's so much going on. So what I suggest trying this with is with this exercise where you're playing. You can start anywhere, but let's start on our first fret on the 6th string, playing fret 1, fret 2, fret 3, fret 4 with finger 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going up the strings. This hand doesn't matter if you're going to use your fingers, if you're going to use a pick, whatever. We'll talk about that in a second. You want to just play up every string. When you get to that top string, and you could do any variation of this because it's about what we're focusing on, but this is a great one to do it with. Once you get up to the top string, you shift up to 2nd position. That means your first finger's lined up with the 2nd fret. Now we're going to go back down. Finger 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, fret 5, 4, 3, 2, each string. Okay, then I'm going to shift up this way. So just going a little faster just to show you, speed is not the goal. Okay, so this is what I'm using as an example. Again, you can work on this focus rotation method with, in fact, you should be with anything you're practicing. So we're going to take this and then we're going to focus on different things. A lot of these are going to be just always there, things to be mindful of. And I want you to practice what it feels like to just focus on that one thing at a time. Not in any particular order. Let's list a few things out. Breathing, I actually always put that first. And when I sit down to work, to warm up, the first thing I think of is, am I breathing? And I very consciously breathe. It's hard to play with tension if we're making sure that we're breathing. I always do that first. And I do that because I used to play and finding myself holding my breath. And so that's not uncommon. If you can relate to that, then this breathing part can be really helpful. Okay, what are some more? Playing as light as possible, playing as relaxed and light as possible. So not squeezing, not gripping, not tensing up, related to the breathing thing. I'm putting these first, even though this is not a specific order, these are so crucial. Keeping your fingers close to the fretboard. You might play this and go like this. Whoa, the fingers are flying way off, or you'll see I see people playing like that. And people can play that way and sound great, but if you work on reeling those in, you're going to save yourself energy, time. It's going to be smoother. You can play faster, all of that stuff. So one of these is to focus on, okay, are my fingers close to the fretboard? Instead of coming way off and then coming back. That's a thing to focus on. Left hand thumb position. thumb position, we don't want it, I used to tell people to always have it be down here, but really just watch out for it being way over, way off to the side, or rather whatever you're choosing to say is intentional, right? Kind of can depend on context too. But for the most part, centered and able to move around. So if you play this and your thumb is here and you get up to that top string and then you shift and your thumb stays there, that's the kind of thing to watch out for. So you want your whole hand position to shift, really just thumb position in general. You're thinking about that, you're focusing on that. So that's an item. Tone, sound, that's a big part of technique, right? So if I turn my pick, and I'm playing with the pick right now, I play with fingers a lot too. So if you're playing with fingers, this applies. If I rotate my pick this way, whoa, I do not want that sound. So I'm gonna rotate my pick this way, and if it's exactly perpendicular with the string, it gets that sound, and I'm gonna rotate it even a little more. That's the sound I like, again, compared to, so I'm thinking about tone, which means pick angle or string angle. If I play with my fingers, same thing. Maybe get a scrape versus a clear tone. Playing on the fingertips, this is a very common one. So we want to not just fly in and play something like this. We want to actually try to play on the fingertips. Notice how many things we are already pointing out just from this simple exercise that are happening at once. Here's another one, playing next to the actual fret. The actual fret is the metal part. So we call the space here the fret, but the fret itself is the metal part. And if you play next to it, you don't have to push down as hard. And if you don't have to push down as hard, it doesn't pull the note out of tune as much. We can play with less tension, which is a big priority that we mentioned earlier. So can you do this playing next to the fret? If you're playing over here, listen to what easily happens. All those buzzes, okay? Dynamics is always a thing to focus on. Are we playing light? Can we control playing louder? For me, I often just play light, and I have my guitar set up in a way where if I dig in, start getting a little rattling and buzzing. But just dynamics, how hard are we playing? Getting this kind of splat sound is very, very common. If you want it, fine. I'm not saying that I don't ever like that sound, but are we doing it on purpose? Here's one I mentioned earlier, just listening to the pitches. Just listening, and this is not a song or anything, but just listening to the way that it sounds, this vibration of air that's happening from you playing this instrument. I find this is my favorite one. It's like, as soon as I choose to focus on that, I'm like, oh wow, it hits me how much I wasn't listening to it. So if I'm doing just this and I'm like, oh yeah, I enjoy it so much because I can just enjoy, even if something like this, just the sound of the guitar. It connects me to how wonderful it is to be able to sit here and work on music. And if it's that fun to hear notes coming out of the guitar with this exercise, it's even better with pieces of music that we're working on, right? So it's like, oh, that's what that note sounds like. I'm not thinking about the pitch name or anything. Just listening to it. It's similar to like you're camping and you're near a river or something and it's just the background noise, and then if you choose to listen to it, you can just get this sense of calm from it, or whatever it might, however it might affect you. Just like, or the birds chirping, like, oh, the birds are chirping. But if you're just kind of distracted and not focusing on that, you don't get that feeling, whatever it might be for you, or the wind or whatever. So I find that sounds in general, I like to do this when I'm just walking too, like, oh, now I hear that, now I hear that, now I hear that. If I don't choose to do that, then I just don't notice any of it. Another focus item, playing in time, playing at a pace. You don't have to do it with a metronome. I often say don't worry about metronome unless we're working on specific time things. This could be that if it's hard for you to play in time, but I just mean play evenly. And what that means also is that when you're focusing on those other things, you don't have to. So that's if someone says, if I say, okay, focus on having a clear tone, which is gonna have to do with probably playing next to the fret. So we'll say playing next to the fret, but I like this idea of getting a clear tone, no buzzing. And if you prioritize playing in time, then you will easily land at a spot that you didn't want to land on and get a buzz happening. So, or fingers close is a great one. So fingers close, I like to go super slow. Are my fingers close to the fretboard? About half an inch away is what is often said to be the goal. I go super slow, out of time. If I'm working on time, that's its own thing. So that's related to speed playing. If you're working on speed, then you're working on speed. If you want to get it faster, that's your focus. So don't take my word for it. Try this for yourself. Take this exercise or anything. Choose a few elements that are happening. A lot of those ones I listed are always going to be present. Other contexts will be different. If you're playing maybe a bar chord, is every note ringing? That could be something you're focusing on. But choose a few of those elements that are happening and then practice rotating your focus between them. You can do it while you're playing. So there's the sustained focus and the rapid focus. So if you want to do sustain, then you're really trying to focus on that one thing while you're going up. But the other one is fine too, where you say, now I'm choosing to switch over to this and I'm thinking of this. Now I'm choosing to switch over this and I'm thinking of this. This has changed how I teach because, well, first of all, I see how effective it is to really make improvements. But when I'm teaching someone, I have to now, instead of just pointing out as the teacher, oh, remember to do this, remember this, oh, this is happening, I'll always ask, or try to remember to ask, what were you focusing on right then? What were you thinking of when you played that through? And if I was going to tell them something about their thumb position, but they say that they were focusing on the right hand, then I'm like, oh, great. Well, the right hand was not something I was going to even comment on because it was going well. And so good job. Now let's do a round where you focus on the thumb and we'll switch between them. So try the sustained focus first with each thing so you get used to what it feels like to go to that focus, to go to that item, that element of playing. And then you can do the rapid focus because when you're familiar with how to fix something, then you can go and kind of target it for a second, switch around, and everything becomes a habit together. So we can do that in our sleep version so we can express something musical and play something meaningful. So I would love to hear from you. Are there things that you need to focus on? Is there anything that I didn't mention that you find helpful to focus on? Have you tried this? Have you done this before? If you haven't, try what I'm telling you. Tell me how you think that it works for you. Try it and report back. Leave a comment below. I would love to hear from you. Let me know if you have any questions anytime. Just leave a comment. I'm here for you to help you become a better guitar player. If you found this valuable, hit subscribe, hit like. I'll see you in another sound guitar lesson real soon, and happy practicing.